Rec Yard, women's prison podcast, where we are live on the Rec Yard every Wednesday night. Hey, everybody. It is Wednesday night, and we are on the Rec Yard Women's Prison Podcast. I'm Marci Marie.
I'm Toonchi.
Toonchi, can you look at the camera when you say that and be happy?
You know what? I think I do that all the time when I go to say my name. I always.
Why?
Carrie leaves something in the chat, or last week she said, "Can we see past your hat? Can you take the hat off sometimes?"
Yeah, you got. Oh my! Put the hat back on, Toonch. Put it back on. That hair is out of control.
It's bad.
Toonchi, we have a great show tonight.
Yeah, it's going to be fun.
Yeah, I'm excited. And how'd you like the title, Bars and Biases?
I liked it. It was good.
ChatGPT.
I was going to say, did you do that or did ChatGPT?
I asked ChatGPT what would be a good title. And that was just part, like they come up with this long, and I'm like, oh, I just like that little part. So we see you guys coming in on the chat. Thank you. I see you, Crystal. I see you, Laurie. I'm happy to see everybody. Melanie, hi. Good to see you. So we have a special guest tonight, Chris Sederburg, who is the leader of the Trans Action Committee for the Rainbow Youth Project. He is also a TikTok influencer, formerly incarcerated on the hobby unit as a trans man. So we are talking about tonight but the disparities and the abuse that our trans community has inside of women's prisons, and not just trans, but LGBTQ plus period, but certainly any masculine presenting woman, the special ways that they're treated inside of women's prisons. And what can we do about that? What actions do we need to take to change that? But before we do that, look at me, not cutting off too deep. Let's do a weekly recap. Toonch, how was your week?
How was my week? Well, last weekend was Mother's Day weekend. Okay. Did a lot of work during the week. And then me and my wife took off for East Texas.
Lori Mellinger. Yeah, she doesn't know she's your wife, which is an interesting combination, right?
It's given a lot of baby reindeer vibes. She was going to see Ariana for Mother's Day, and I was going to see my parents. So going in the same direction, might as well take the opportunity to be in the car for 4 hours, 5 hours. And then if you saw the TikTok of us while she was trying to get the Wi-Fi passcode, that she thought it was redeem me and it was reward me. And it was just funny as hell.
I bet you talked the whole entire 4 hours. Did you?
I mean, I feel like it was pretty equal because me and Lori can talk. We never run out of things to talk about. And
if Lori's your wife, what happened to Taylor Swift? Melanie says.
So here's the deal. Taylor is, it's for a whole conversation, but Taylor is like a holy mother, right? So I don't see her as a wife or objectify her as some girlfriend, or she's like the holy mother. So I could never.
Let's not disrespect Taylor Swift.
So we could get into a whole discussion one night about that, though.
Well, my Mother's Day, I had all of my children here with my brother and his wife and my parents. It was a house full. It was a lot of fun. I had my 2 grandbabies here. Now my nephews went with their mom to their other family's house, so we didn't have them, but everybody else was here, and it was really lovely. Mother's Day makes me just grateful for maternal people, not necessarily people that actually are mothers or mothering their own children. I have seen motherhood come out in so many spectacular ways. And I think about the ladies that mothered my kids while I was in prison, and ladies that let me mother them while I was in prison, that I was incarcerated with, and my play mom in prison, and all of that. So I do love Mother's Day because I think it means so much more than just the woman that gave birth to you. So it was a really good day, and I don't remember if anything else happened. We didn't go anywhere, so did we? No.
Yeah,
No,
I don't
no.
think so. I think you were just at home and with lots of family around
Yeah.
you.
Department of Corruptions always reminds me to encourage you all to like the live, tap your screen if you're watching on your cell phone, hit those hearts, make sure you're commenting. Please share the live. And if you're listening to this podcast, wherever you hear your favorite podcasters, please do leave us a review. That helps our show to reach an even broader audience, and we appreciate that so much. I feel like it's time to get Chris on here.
Let's do it.
You ready? I think so too. Let's do it. Chris Sederburg, welcome.
Hi, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for coming on the show. And Chris, I have been a fan of yours on social media for quite a while. And I feel like we know each other really well because I know we interact and watch each other's videos, but we've never been in the same room, and we've got to link up. We were just talking about that.
Definitely, definitely, I agree.
Chris, can you tell us just a little bit about what you're doing with the Rainbow Youth Project, and then we'll dive into the topic for tonight?
So, Rainbow Youth Project provides free mental health counseling for LGBTQ youth, and they have a suicide hotline. Basically, I go around helping Lance at events and promoting and all of that. You know, Pride is coming up. We'll definitely be busy.
Yeah, you're like us. You stay busy working a full-time job and advocating, and
Definitely,
that's our life too, man. We're just running around.
yeah, definitely. It's got to help somebody, you know.
Yeah, for sure. Well, we appreciate the work you're doing. It's so important. We know that the suicide rates for that community, especially in youth, are high, too
Yeah,
high, far too high. And so it's wonderful that you guys are offering some sort of resource for those kiddos to go to and a place to turn for sure. Now, Toonchi, Chris did time on the hobby unit.
Oh boy.
Yeah, I know a little of Chris's story because I interviewed him. Did you watch that interview on my YouTube, Toonchi?
Of course I did.
Did you?
I mean, don't I watch all of them?
No, I don't think you do.
God bless. That's not true. I do. Um, but I'm excited for Chris to be able to tell our audience here.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, so can you just talk a little bit about, yeah, how long were you incarcerated, and hobby, for those of you that don't know, that is really deemed the most dangerous women's prison in Texas. It's definitely has the highest, statistically speaking, violence rate, right? So, yeah, can you tell us a little bit about that?
yeah. I wasn't locked up near as long as you. I was in the prison system from 2012 to 2015. I spent some time in the Woodman, and I ended up in Hobby, and it is quite. A lot of people get cut up. It's quite violent there if you catch it at the right moment.
Yeah, I think, my wife did some time on hobby at the end of her time, and she talked about staff going toe to toe with incarcerated folks, and, that it was nothing for that kind of stuff to just kind of be overlooked, and that really didn't happen where I was, and I was on a pretty rough unit, uh, and we both were on really rough units compared to Toonchi doing her cupcake time on the Mountain View unit.
Yeah.
Don't get me started. Can I please remind everybody that I did the younger years at TYC and Crane and Murray? Okay.
The
So there,
fact is you really did harder time than anybody on this show tonight, so, I'll give you that, Toonchi, but
I
you
just,
finished it. You
I,
finished it pretty
I,
smooth.
I did. And, well, I don't know. I finished it at Hindley. So it
Yeah.
was just one more reminder before I left. Just remember. But yeah, so I'm wondering, Chris, if you could tell us a little bit about your personal journey, and then how did that affect your time at Hobby?
As far as being trans, I wasn't out as trans yet at the time. I was very masculine presenting, obviously. It it had a lot of eyes on me all the time. Any masculine person, the eyes are on you all the time. Um, I've gotten cases for ridiculous stuff just for being in the wrong place, and that affects your parole and everything as far as getting out. Any cases you get, but they do definitely single you out and make it harder for you.
What would you say as masculine presenting and as a trans man? What do you think the number one thing was that they harassed you about?
A lot of times it was being in the window signing to people. But I caught a case one time when I was just going to throw something away. I was honestly going to throw something away, and I caught a case because I was in the vicinity of the window. So, they mess with you with stuff like that, and that messes with your parole, everything.
I
When
th-
Chris is talking about signing in the window, he's
Yeah,
talking about for folks that have never done time in a women's prison in Texas, because I learned that that's regional. That's just Texas. When I talk to other ladies that did time elsewhere, they don't have a clue what I'm talking about. But we had our own sign language in there. And so we could communicate across the whole complex. We would sign really big, or we could communicate really small. If I was next to my bunkie trying to tell her something I didn't want the other bunkie to hear, I would go real small and sign. And so probably they thought it was relationship stuff, right?
definitely. Yeah.
so
They
you
thought every move you made was relationship stuff.
right. Right, that somehow, well, and it goes to what we've always talked about, this absolute obsession with our bodies, with our sexuality. Um, and if you were mass presenting, which I guess, I mean, people would say that about me, even though I don't really see myself that way, but I certainly, I guess, fit whatever box they put me in when I was locked up. And it's like, until they knew that I was just your harmless old lesbian aunt, right? I don't know. It took me a while that once I'd hit a unit to really like cultivate um, this understanding that I don't know, that some of that went away for me because I just was so conscious of pushing back against you labeling me in a way that I don't identify, right? And that's not fair, because I thought you were going to say your hair, right? Because at Mountain View, your hair, it was constant obsession and disciplinary over the length of your hair, right? And your haircut.
Yeah,
Did
I
you
caught
experience
a
that?
couple cases for hiding in the corner to get my hair cut. I caught a couple cases, but that was about it. They never said anything. They just gave me a case for cutting my hair.
Now, did you have any facial hair during your incarceration?
No, I did not. I hadn't started any of my transition at that point.
Mhm.
Tunch, I think you made a good point. When we say mask presenting, that can be so minor, and it can also apply to women that weren't even attracted to other women, but maybe they walked a little hard, or maybe they had a shorter haircut like you, or I mean, I just remember mask presenting was a pretty that's a very broad, but still that population definitely got zeroed in on by the staff.
Yeah, as soon as you walk on the unit, it's like even from the inmates, you're fresh meat. If you're mask presenting at all, you're fresh meat. And the guards know that, and they zone in on you immediately. And from that moment on, from day one, you're in their sight constantly. They're watching and waiting for you to slip up, if anything.
I remember when a new mask presenting person would come on the unit in our dorm. There would literally be bets about who they would get with, and they got a lot of attention, positive attention from the female population. So was that your experience?
Yes. It was very different. When I got out, I was like, wait a second, nobody's paying attention to me. Yeah, for real. Because in there, I was a little player. I'm not even gonna lie. But I mean, I had a constant girlfriend after I got done playing. But yeah, all eyes are on you. Everybody's waiting, to get to you.
Right. I mean, I think that's a good point. Like the attention is both negative and positive because, you know, if you're a decent looking trans man or butch lesbian, right? Like you're gonna get a lot of attention, right? Like I'm not gonna lie, I did get a lot of attention, and I mean I'm naturally charming, so I mean there was that. Don't make that face, Marcy. But the bad attention was, I remember, like I said, it would take me a while to cultivate on the unit like I'm not a threat, right? Like to make the officers see me as your, like I said, your little aunt that has a roommate, right? Like to be so non-threatening to them, because of how they, like Chris said, just hone in on you and target you for everything and assume that you're predator or you're a sex fiend or I don't know, right? And I got transferred to Riverside by accident for a college program. And I remember the first time I went to the chow hall, I walked down there, was in line, and the sergeant in front of everybody in the freaking chow hall walks up to me and says, "Hey, you, give me your ID." And I'm like, Jesus God, here we go. And I was like, yeah, am I going to have a problem out of you? And I'm like, really? If anybody at Mountain View heard you asking me this right now, they'd be like, oh my God, really? Just simply because I had a short, clean haircut.
Right. Just zoning in. Yeah.
My wife, her and I were on the same unit for a couple years, and we didn't live together in the same dorm, but we would be on Main Street, which, guys, that's just the main street that runs the length of the prison. And we would, some officer would see her on one side and see me, and they would pull her over to strip. She got strip searched so frequently. It's not even funny. And what did they ever find on her? A note, a bag of rice I had cooked, or I mean, that never it was they never found a weapon or drugs or a cell phone. It was this huge thing. "Oh, you got a kite?" We had an officer, she'd be like, "Oh, you got a kite? Oh, from your wifey?" Like, this huge big deal for a note, y'all. A note saying, "Keep your head up. I love you. I miss you." Like, a note.
Just that simple need to embarrass you. They definitely zone in on the masked people for that, just to embarrass you as much as they possibly can.
I'm curious, Chris, like, did you ever experience, I know for those of us at Mountain View, whenever we would have lockdown, like everybody has to put their gown on, which is weird, right? Because men don't have to do that during lockdown. So why are we in gowns? And I never wore my gown. I fucking hated that gown. I hated it. But they would make us put those gowns on with nothing on other than our shower shoes and tote our stuff. And they would put the butch girls in front of everybody. And everybody would be at the windows. The officers would, hey, we're on lockdown, but everybody's at the windows in the day room laughing at all of the masculine presented women that are walking down to the gym. And it was so humiliating. And I'm wondering, did they ever do stuff like that to y'all at Hobby?
I don't remember ever wearing a gown. I remember the lockdowns. I don't remember wearing a gown. That's terrible though. But they didn't do that where we were. Yeah, that would be way too embarrassing. They would probably have to put me in solitaire after that.
Yeah, and it's funny you say that. I mean, and you're just like halfway saying it lightheartedly, but what do we see in solitary confinement on the units that have housed incarcerated folks in Texas? We see a huge majority of trans men and or mask presenting um, women. That's what you see. I remember the first time I got locked up in Seg on Lane Murray, and I'm at the door, and I'm like, man, everybody's got short hair. And then, like, when they're running showers and wrecks, I'm like, oh my gosh, like, this is hugely disproportionate to the prison population of what they have, the prison inside of prison, right? And so that's for sure some disparity there for sure. And medium custody too, even.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure, medium custody, especially younger, right? Well, Chris, were you there? What years were you there?
2013 through 2015. I believe I hit Hobby in 2013. Yeah.
So you were there. I mean, Priya started back in 2002. So do you feel like the protections, which is the Prison Rape Elimination Act, it's really the only thing that the Texas Department of Criminal Justice really has that forces them to go by some guidelines for care and protection of transgender populations? Do you feel like that was helpful in terms of like strip searches, staff viewing, or anything like that?
No, and when I got there and you have to go through the orientation and everything, I actually made fun of that. Not in a bad way. Well, I shouldn't have, but I made fun of it because when we walk on the unit, like I said earlier, we're fresh meat and you already feel like you're just, being, yeah, it's inappropriate just the way that everybody does look at you the way you get there. But I don't feel like it really helped as far as strip searches that much. The strip searches were the most uncomfortable thing to me there. And the amount of times they do it, it just makes you feel like you're already assaulted, there's no way around that. Did they do anything physically? No, not with me around, not that I know of, but I don't feel like that helps very much.
So those of you that might be listening for the first time or haven't heard Toonchi and I talk about how often they strip search uh, incarcerated women or people incarcerated on women's units, it can be some jobs you have, they strip you 4 times a day. You strip going to work, coming in from lunch, going back from lunch, coming in for the day. You strip before and after visitation. You can strip before and after a cellar cubicle search. You can have random strip searches. It's very often that folks in Texas incarcerated get strip searched, especially on women's units. What I'm curious about is, did they strip search you separately? You were with everyone.
Yeah, I was working on with the kitchen for a while, and during that time, they had a little shack that they would bring everybody in and strip you all together, literally side by side. You're basically touching in front of and behind each other because there's so many of you in there. You're just all together. They're stripping you, and they go one by one to make sure you don't have anything, and you just stand there until they're done naked.
Mm-hmm.
We know, as just me personally as a woman, how degrading and humiliating those strip searches felt, period. And I'm just curious if you felt like that did anything to further mentally harm you as a trans man, strip searching like that, shoulder to shoulder with women.
Definitely. Most trans men and most masked lesbians are very uncomfortable with their body already. They just don't have that confidence. So having that done over and over and feeling like you're having to do this in front of everybody, you don't want to, you're already uncomfortable. It definitely carried over to even now. I'm not comfortable. Yeah, I don't like getting naked in front of anybody. So it definitely messed some things up.
Yeah, and I remember the staff, maybe not at Mountain Views, well, sometimes, but you know, staff, oh, you want to be a man, you want to look like a man, I'm going to treat you one. And then when you're naked and you still have a female presenting body, right? Like that you're already uncomfortable with, and the things that they would say to butch women, right? Like to embarrass, degrade, humiliate, um, was bad, you know, like making fun of your body and making fun of, oh, you don't look like a man to me, and it's like, I'm not saying that all the female guards did that, because you would think that female guards would be, and we've talked about this before, Marci, you would think they would be the most empathetic, and they were some of the nastiest. Like, now I am curious, Chris, how did you feel like your interactions were with male staff?
Um,
Did you ever feel, I always felt threatened by them, and that may just be internal stuff, but it seemed like it felt heightened. Their perception of me as someone that wanted to be a man, it made that even more emotionally charged. Of, I don't know, the way in high school boys would taunt me and yell at me for being a lesbian. It was like a primal fear. So I'm just curious if you ever experienced that.
I want to say with some of them, it made me have really bad anxiety. Not all, but some of them were the ones that would put me on edge. I would always be careful around them and definitely not want to be around them alone or anything. But not all of them.
When there were lots of times when officers come in, especially younger, maybe good-looking guys would come to work, and the same kind of reaction that maybe a mask-presenting, person would come on the unit that they would get from the incarcerated population, those officers get that attention, and I remember thinking like, "Man, this is boosting his ego," and so it just makes me wonder if some of that backlash that you got sometimes from male staff had to do with a competitive type nature. Like they didn't like seeing you get attention from the ladies.
Probably because they really eat that up. I've seen them,
Mhm.
they eat that attention up. They love it. So, yeah, probably.
Well, and I think it's just what we experience in the LGBTQ plus community, right? Is I saw someone, yes, on TikTok, and it was a podcast, and it was this gay guy, and he was talking about like, I feel like me and my lesbian friend we kind of sort of for ourselves figured out why men do this to us. And it's like, as a gay man, it's this anger that I'm embracing feminineness, and it's a rage towards anything feminine. And then as a lesbian, or somebody that's embracing masculinity, it's this rage of, how dare you encroach on, manhood, right? Like, and so it's this anger that anybody um, comes into their territory, I guess, as they see it. And so I think it's this anger about, how dare you be a man, right? Like, I'm the man. And I think that's what it was. And that used to scare me. Like I could feel that. And it wasn't often because like Chris, I stayed away from male officers as much as possible because I can deal with women being nasty and dealing with that, but it was a primal fear of that type of hostility.
It was definitely competitive. You could just feel the energy coming out of that.
One of the incidents that has happened recently on the Dr. Lane Murray unit, they actually recently put in an incentive dorm. And so it's a dorm that's got like some real couches. It has a foosball table. It's got a washer and dryer, And so the idea is, hey, for the top, however many that dorm holds, which if I'm remembering correctly, it's 125. Oh, no, it's D dorm, so it's 52. The top 52 people that are the best behaved, come on this unit. So they start the program and they pool the 52 and they get them in the dorm. And then the 52 included one trans man and one very masculine presenting woman who I know personally. Shout out to Scorpio. So she wrote us and told us that out of nowhere, the trans man got a moving slip. No incidences, no disciplinary things, not a girlfriend in the dorm, because I've been there. I want to know, okay, well, was his woman in the dorm with him? I'm just asking it flat out, and then Scorpio goes on to say that they're at Pill Line one afternoon and Scorpio, and I say he, but Scorpio definitely identifies as a woman, but that's my prison brain because in prison, any mask presenting person we called a he. So Scorpio was in Pill Line with the other people in his dorm, and the warden came by and identified that that was the privileged dorm, the incentive dorm, and went straight to Scorpio. What are you doing here? Are you out of place? And Scorpio's like, no, I'm with my dorm. This is Pill Line. I'm in Pill Line with my dorm to get my medication. And she says, let me see your ID. And Scorpio goes to hand the ID, and she just takes her cell phone out, snaps a picture, and that night, of course, Scorpio got a moving pass. It was 100%. I mean, there's just no other explanation than because of how he looked and was in that dorm. Yeah, so I just like your thoughts on that, and I know that there was nothing like an incentive dorm, but did you notice disparities as far as maybe education opportunities, or I don't know what other kind of privileges you guys might have had at the hobby unit during that time? I don't know if you had sports or anything like that, but I'm wondering if you noticed any disparities that way.
No, but that just sounds like the same thing as zoning in on them, and they're expecting them to mess up or have a girlfriend without knowing even, and even if they're not doing anything wrong, since they expect that, they're automatically going to punish them. But I don't remember. I mean, we had rec. That was about it. And yeah, they picked on everybody when it came to rec. Some of them wouldn't get to go out to rec because of some stupid case they would get, even if it was really nothing. So just that.
You made me think about how officers would sometimes deny outside rec or day room time for if they knew you had a girlfriend that was out, and that would be just either way. No, oh, you're not going with them, even though your disciplinary was fine, even though you were at your cell door ready like you were supposed to. They would literally say the words, oh no, you ain't going to rec with her. You're
Yeah,
not
they
doing
weren't shy
that.
about it.
No, not you ever hear it on the radio or the phone call that said, "Hey, hold tune in the dorm," right? Because Lindsay's going, and it's like, but we didn't do anything, and we don't have a case together, and it's like, so what is this stigma or idea or I don't know, like this idea that just because I look mannish or man or masculine, why do you automatically attribute danger? I'm talking about from the staff, right? Like danger in the sense of trouble, as in mischief, as malice, right? And I think it's, I guess the same way that I'm assuming people with disabilities are seen as weak or less human, or people of color, that there's this automatic assumption of threat.
And what's so odd about that is, Toonch, your disciplinary history during your incarceration, especially the last 10 years, was stellar, right?
Yeah.
And mine, on the other hand, right? I'm in and out of medium custody. I mean, when I started my time, we knew that we could fight one time every 6 months without getting G4'd. And I fought one time every 6 months until they changed that, and so it's like they really had it turned around, honestly, because they really should have been watching me, and they did watch me, but that's because I
Well,
drew their attention.
right, because okay, while you're pulling over, and that's when the officer would snatch you out of line. You're pulling over me and Chris and Britt. Marci, Mandy, if you're watching, I'm just thinking of a beautiful feminine girl, or whoever. They're letting them go, and they're carrying whatever it is, right? Almost like how we saw black women get pulled out. It's like she ain't got nothing, but you just let all these Marcy's go by that are carrying all kinds of buku shit, right? So it's like it is this stereotyped prejudice of attributing danger and threat in those very systemic, oppressive things that our culture does.
The sad part is anybody that goes into that dorm, that special privileged dorm that is mask presenting, they're on edge every day, expecting to get kicked out, even for no reason.
That's such a great point, and I just remember I stayed in trouble a lot, but I also had my trustee band twice. I would just go all the way down and work my way back up, and I remember even just with that band, you get attention. So I remember the officer, "Oh, a yellow band? You wanna lose that band?" Anytime you questioned them or pointed out something that they were doing out of line, it was like, "Oh, you want to lose that band?" And I'm thinking, man, I bet that entire population in that dorm is on edge a little bit, and then even more so, like double for any mask presenting person that goes in that dorm, for sure.
Yeah,
Y'all,
and
go
that
ahead.
carries with you once you get out. That anxiety of always, you're always on edge that something's going to happen. That carries with you.
Y'all, when I left county jail, the second incarceration, I told my girlfriend Gina, shout out to Gina if she's watching. She shows up every once in a while.
Hi,
But
Gina.
hi, Gina. I remember, so I'd been in county jail for about a year, okay, and my hair was growing out. My hair grows fast, so it's like down here, and y'all do not want to see me with long hair. I look like hippy dippy from 1960 flower child with the thin straight hair. It's just terrible. But so I'm like, she's like, cut your hair. I'm sure somebody there has some smuggled scissors or razors to cut your hair. And I said, no, I want to go into the system with long hair. Like I was so worried about getting to a unit, and the first thing, I've got short hair, clean. I mean, because when I got arrested, my hair was clean, right? Nice fade, all that stuff. I was like, I don't want to show up at a new unit looking the way I do. And she didn't understand that. And I said, because you just don't understand how they treat us, how bad it is. And I cannot take that right now. And she said, honey, I hate to tell you something, but you look more like a lesbian with hair long than you do short. So it doesn't matter if you cut it or leave it long. You are who you are, right? And I think when she said that, I was like, oh, well, you're right. But I mean, I did cut it pretty close after I got there because she was right. I am who I am, and fuck y'all.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
have
the biggest
said,
problem-
Go ahead, Chris. I'm sorry.
Yeah, the first thing they do when you get to a unit is profile you, and immediately you're a target. So, and I got a lecture like the first day I reached hobby. Yeah,
Oh,
about
God.
don't go get a girlfriend and all that, So yeah,
Oh,
they expect it right away.
not the lectures. Oh my God, the lectures.
Toonch, I have
Marcy, did you
often
FEMS? Hey, did you FEMS get lectures like that?
I got a lecture. Let me tell you, there was an officer on the Dr. Lane Murray unit, a field boss who had multiple last names during my 10 years there. But she also invited my husband at the time to the bar at visitation one time. So if you're watching, you know who you are. I won't call you out by name in case your current husband is a wife beater or something. But she would often say to me things like, you don't know how all these women here want to have a man like yours. Well, lady, you don't know the state of my relationship. But she would pull me over and say things like that. Well, you're already crushing on the man. You know, I'm blessed that he's bringing these babies up here, but he and I's relationship ended a long time ago, and I don't vocalize that to the staff, but it's none of their business, but she would often pull me aside and say things like that. Then he came to visit one time and she said, Marcy's got a girlfriend, da 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 da. And he said, "Yes, I do know that." Like, he fortunately, one thing he and I do still have in common is, you know, maybe our attitude towards correction staff. He had been incarcerated too, so, he knows how they can be. But that was a direct attack on my marriage if it had been a good marriage or if I was trying to make a relationship there, and she did that. So yeah, I got lectures from her. Now Chanel, Chanel, maybe you know who I'm talking about, that had multiple, very thin host squad boss that's still there working on the field.
She was the one with the nasty draws and panties that she would leave her bloody pads in and make the girls at Hobby and Hilltop wash her clothes with it in there. And if I'd have just heard it from Hobby, I would have been like, I don't know, heard it from both Hobby and Hilltop. And so she did it on purpose.
To be mean.
Honey, I knew her when I was a kid at Riverside. She was a regular host god.
You're thinking about somebody else.
No, I know who it is. I know who you're talking about. Now, I want to ask Chris another question.
Okay.
Talking about female officers.
I'm scared now.
Well, oh boy, here we go. So I also stayed clear of female officers as well, because female officers tend, and it's not like they didn't come my way, but I don't do the law. So is it okay if we ask, and you don't have to answer, but were there any female officers you had relationships with and or that you didn't, and who just got obsessed with you and tried to sabotage your relationships either in the world or your girlfriends there?
No.
And your face got real red, so I feel like
Yeah,
there's some tea here.
give us the tea, because there's a story for sure. You already gave it away.
I want to say no, not in Hobby or anything, and not in county, but in county there was an officer that would come to me every morning before everybody would get up, because I would get up so I could watch the news every morning at it was real early before anyone else in the bunks got up. And every time she knew I was going to be up, and she would literally come in there and lock herself in there with me and watch the TV. And she was real young, she was new, and I knew it wasn't right. Like the whole vibe, I could just tell what was going on. But other than that, no. In Hobby, I want to say they pretty much left me alone. I bunked with my girlfriend, the one that I had for a while. So they pretty much left me alone. They just picked on us a lot.
Yeah.
That means they were in the cell together, folks. Chris was in the cell, shared a 2-man cell with his woman during his incarceration.
I mean, That's really top notch right there.
It
That
didn't
never
start off,
happens.
yeah, it didn't start off well. Okay,
It didn't
I don't know
start.
how it happened, but it happened.
I mean, that's better than, I mean, I was about one cubicle away from mine. And let me tell you something, I worked really hard to make sure the staff did not know at all. You know, because you already know if you're hanging out with a femme longer than 10 minutes or you sit up and watch a movie together, y'all are together. That's it.
Yeah,
Everybody I ever did anything with was somebody I was having sex with. And it was like, are you? No.
yeah, and they would right away try to move you. Yeah, we had to try to hide it real good, but for a while they found out and they knew and they left us. I think they thought it was a disaster waiting to happen. They were just waiting to see the drama. I don't know because they like that.
They do.
Yeah.
Yeah, they set it up for drama sometimes. I used to say often, and I still probably say it, is that they would rather see you fight, physical altercation, than FUCK. Like, they would rather see you throw hands than have sex with your woman in the penitentiary. It was
Uh,
so strange, how fixated the staff was on preventing that. Everything was about preventing that.
Everything in a women's prison is centered around preventing girlfriends from hanging out together or possibly even getting a kiss, right? Like everything, programming, rec, chow, everything. That is the motivation. Like, wouldn't y'all agree? Like, I'm not being over dramatic. Like, everything is through that lens.
no, you're definitely on point. Yeah.
I want to circle back a little bit about you were talking about the Toonchi. You were talking about gowns and how that felt to wear gowns. We also on Lane Murray at lockdown had to wear gowns, and that was something that we did. But we had some for a short time at Lane Murray. They were letting trans men, if they had state issued boxer shorts. That means if for what that means on Lane Murray unit for you to get a pair of boxer shorts is you either went to Skyview and got a pair, or somebody else went to Skyview and came back, which Skyview is the psych hospital, which is men and women are there, and that you can get a pair of boxer shorts from laundry there. So if you came back and sold them, but just for a little while, they were um, letting us wear boxers, and not necessarily just trans men, but just, and that was maybe a 8-month period that was allowed. And then all of a sudden it was a big crackdown and they took them all. So one of the trans members of Lioness right now talks about the way that he felt having to wear women's panties. And so I wanted to ask you, and if you're comfortable sharing that, if that was the policy while you were locked up, and if that damaged you in any way.
Yeah, all the way from county up to the point when I got the hobby, that was mandatory. And the only time I got boxers was when I had them, they were made for me. And so, of course, you chance getting them taken away every day. So I'm constantly trying to hide them. But yeah, wearing panties was just as uncomfortable as getting naked, stripping down. Um, yeah, it's a nightmare.
I remember a lot of trans men and even mask presenting women wearing shorts under their wearing shorts like that you could purchase on commissary as undergarments, and I that was a huge deal also for a while. It was cases, and then it was, I mean, our pants are white, so for my wife, she would be in regulation with her undergarments, but then she would want shorts on to kind of give more coverage. She didn't feel comfortable at all. Um, yeah, I just think that that's for sure. Eric is talking about trans women on the men's units, and the issue with bras there, and that's unknown realm for us because none of us have done time on a men's unit, but I could see how that would be a huge problem as well. And then
Go ahead.
yeah, go for it.
Oh,
Go for it too.
well, and Chanel got wrote up for those boxers
Yeah, you
For
changed
making
it every day.
boxers.
for making them. Chanel, you made boxers?
Mhm.
Well, that's what I want for Christmas is a
Baby,
homemade
Peaches was
pair,
a seamstress. She
a
could make anything
homemade
out of a
pair
sheet.
of boxers. Because you know what I had on earlier? Some Bucky boxers. And Lori said that she could see the crack of my ass. Anyway, I wore shorts under my pants too. I don't like traditional. It's not that I haven't tried or done different things, but I think I never felt comfortable with that, so I wore shorts, and I would get in trouble at work. And my bosses liked me, so they would just whatever, but they would give me a lot of problems because I wore shorts under my pants. I still do. Sometimes I'm like, why did I just put these over my shorts?
It was such a huge issue on Lane Murray for a time that, I mean, they were like, "That's disgusting." Like, if they wore shorts as boxers, I remember being stripped with, people wearing shorts as boxers, and the officers just be like, "That's disgusting. You don't have panties on." I mean, just this overly, um, just to accelerate the humiliation of incarceration as a whole, I feel like.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and you know what? To all the staff that treated us like that, I don't have panties on now, right? I don't. I have
right. I
shorts
got my
on.
boxers now.
Yeah.
So how about that?
Yeah. Yeah. And to all of you that said Brittany and I would not be together in the world, we've been together 5 years and we're legally married. So
That's right.
so that
Right.
that you were so fixated and told me 1,000 times. How many times were we told it's not like you're going to see her in the free world. You're not going to see her I see a lot of people in the free world. Thank you very much. A huge amount of people, and I'm grateful for that for sure.
Well, Chris, do you have anything about your experience that you have a burning desire to share?
No, I really wish they would change the policies that they have that have no point to them, like the boxer thing. It's a comfort level, the stripping. I get that they have to do that, but there's a level of comfort they could add to that. I mean, it's never going to be comfortable, but they could do it, find a way to do it one by one. If they can allow boxers, that's not hurting anybody. That level of uncomfort, it sticks with you for a long time after you get out. The way they make you feel. So a lot of things could be changed.
While I was incarcerated, they started, and I'm gonna mess up the terminology, but people were able to get their hormone shots. Trans men were able to. Was that happening? And I know that you didn't start your treatment during that time, but was that happening when you were incarcerated? And any thoughts on that?
I honestly don't know because I don't think at that time that we knew of, we had any trans people on the unit. Whenever I was on there, I did not know of. I wasn't real connected with everybody, but not that I knew of.
I don't know how Texas is doing that. I'm sure it's some kind of federal regulation because I just don't see any Texas policymakers or policymakers within TDCJ. Do you know?
I don't, but I remembered something that I wanted to bring up because, this isn't just the staff treating us like this. They will treat family and visitors the same way. Distinctly remember at Crane that a trans woman was coming to see, it was either her best friend or her sister. It had to be her sister because it was contact. And they there was just this big, I can see it in my mind. It was just this big ordeal and this shaming embarrassment because they were like, you can't come in here dressed like that. And so her ID was her Texas ID with her, biological sex and name, right? And they were not allowing her to come in dressed as a woman. And it was in just this big, huge ordeal that she just was. I just remember crying, and it just was horrible, right? Like, so I mean, it's not even just us that they will treat that way. They will treat our loved ones that way. I've seen it.
Definitely. Yeah.
What year was that, Toonchi? I mean, was that during your second go around?
I don't remember. I just remember it was at Riverside.
How awful.
Mm-hmm. And
You know,
then at Mountain View, I do remember, especially during the session, the legislative session, where the big fight was the bathroom bills. Who gives a fuck where people take a piss, right? Who cares? Anyway, but I do remember there was a big kind, and I don't remember if it was an IOC or some other type of official document, or if it was just the staff telling the other guards, you are not a, you know, if someone comes up here, they have to show their ID, and they have to be the sex that they are on their ID. And I remember thinking back to that moment with this trans woman, and I'm like, oh, here we go with this shit again.
At visitation?
At visitation, yes.
Yeah, you could probably thank Greg Abbott for that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I remember, like, how do you know? I know that sometimes, I kid you not, going into rural areas, you know, my family lives in East Texas, and I've driven to, there's lots of stretches of rural between going to big cities, right? And there has been times since I've been out that I walk into a women's bathroom and something has either nasty been said to me. Like one time I had to say, I'm a woman and I shouldn't have to tell you that going to the bathroom, right? Like, and it was scary, especially in those rural areas when that comes at you like that.
Well, living in a smaller town, Toonch, Brittany gets that all of the time. And it has been less than a year that we were driving to Waco, I think, and we pulled over in a gas station, and I'm pumping gas, and she walks in and asks where the restroom was, and he told her, we don't have a restroom for your kind. She walked out. She said, "Stop pumping that gas. Like, we're not giving them one more penny." I mean, that was 2023. That's the world that we're living in. So, knowing that the prison systems in Texas are behind culturally already, and then what a fight just the trans community in general population out here in the free world are having to fight. It's just even more so for the incarcerated population. We're at our last few minutes, and I want to say, what do we do? What do we do to help the trans people incarcerated in Texas?
You have to ask them what they need, what help do they need, you know? You know, as much bullying that's going on out here, they're getting it at least 5 times harder in there behind the scenes.
Yeah.
I don't really know. First of all, I would like to know if they're getting their hormones. That's a big deal, you know. If they're not, if there's a way we can help them.
I love that you said ask them, and that's how our organization, how Lioness Justice Impacted Women's Alliance, which we do advocate for women, girls, and gender expansive individuals. I love how you said ask them, because our incarcerated membership, that's who leads our work. They decide what's important and what needs to be addressed, and we act on their word. So I do appreciate that. And as an organization, we are definitely taking steps. We did address some of the issues that our trans community is experiencing in women's prisons in Texas at the last board meeting. that was definitely addressed, and we will continue to address that and raise awareness and have shows like this where we're talking about it, because how does change start? Change starts with conversations like we had today. Any final thoughts, Toonch?
Well, Chris, I just appreciate you coming here and being vulnerable and honest. And I look forward to meeting you in person and for us to do some stuff and hang out and laugh. And it's not all just advocacy; it's community. So we appreciate you very much. And I really want to tell everybody who that was, Marci, but we'll save it for another show that harassed your husband and had them bloody drawers like that.
Yes.
I mean, she doesn't deserve being anonymous, and we're going to have a whole show one day dedicated to her.
We could have a whole show dedicated to her.
Because we could because I knew her when I was 18 all the way to, what am I, 45?
Yeah. Yeah. We definitely could. But we'll save that, Toonch. We'll save it for another night. Chris, I do appreciate you so much. I am not going to let 2 months go by before I see you, even if we have to make a special trip. You are only 1 hour away from me. So we definitely have to connect. Toonch and I now,
we get kicked out of gay bars.
We did get kicked. My wife got kicked out of last time. Were we in Dallas when that happened?
Yes.
We were. Yes.
We left the baseball game and went to Sue Ellen's. And
I want to go there.
Yeah. Oh, let's just plan it. We should just plan it. It doesn't have to be I'm coming to Dallas for this and we need to link up. It just needs to be I'm coming to Dallas to see Chris and we'll go to Sue Ellen's.
Yeah, we definitely need to, for sure.
Yeah.
Get involved however I can to help y'all out.
I would absolutely love that. Everyone, you can find Chris on TikTok. His handle is at mrchris.here, at MRCHRIS.HERE. Thank you so much for being on the show, Chris. We appreciate the valuable insight that you shared with us, and it was just a real pleasure getting to talk with you again. Thank you, everybody, for joining. We appreciate all the comments and the interactions on the show. We love y'all. You know, this is our favorite night of the week, hanging out with you guys. So we appreciate you liking, sharing, commenting, all of the good things, and we will see you same time, same place next week. If I'm smart enough with this new layout, we'll close it out. I couldn't find it, Toonchi. I kept talking because I couldn't find it. Chris, I love you. I'm just such a huge fan. If you guys really do need to follow Mr. Chris, his content is excellent. It's advocacy and entertaining. And I'm just a huge fan. I feel like fangirlish right now. So we will see you guys next week.
All right. Thank you, guys. I appreciate it.
Out with us on the Rec Yard Women's Prison Podcast with Marci Marie and Toonchi. Make sure and subscribe to our channels so you'll never miss a rec night.
The nerve.